In this video, let's discuss batches. Now, on a quick note, AltheaSuite uses the term batches in the system. However, this also works if you're used to the term lot numbers. So first, let's go ahead and create a product that requires a batch number. We're going to go to products, items, and then we'll create a new product here. For this example, I'm going to name the product floor cleaner, and we'll select the category and move on. In this section right here, we can indicate that this item does require a batch. We have two options. The first option is a manual batch, and this will require the user to manually select from a batch number whenever they're creating a sales invoice. The other option has auto batch. This option right here will automatically select the batch for the user based off of either a batch's expiration date or on a first in, first out method. And then lastly, you need to decide if this batch has an expiration date or not. If it doesn't, you can uncheck and it won't require you to put in an expiration date. For this example, we're going to say it does have an expiration date and we're going to do a manual batch. Now I'm just going to continue with creating my item here. I'm going to quickly put in a sales price and a purchase unit price, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Now that we got our item created, let's go ahead and add some inventory for it. I'm going to go ahead and switch to inventory and received stock. The received stock option is a very quick way of adding stock in without having to go through the purchasing process. So I'm going to create a new received stock document, select our floor cleaner, and then if you notice, it immediately asks you to create a batch. So I'm going to go ahead and click new, and this is where I can put all the information about the batch. You can type in a batch number manually, or you can suggest, or Althea can suggest a new batch number for you. I'm going to do this for this first example. I'm going to say that the manufacturing date was the 13th, and that it expires 65 days after the manufacturing date. Apply that and make sure that's correct for the expires on date and click OK. Here I can input the amount of quantity I received from this particular batch. We'll say 10. And now I can go ahead and also add a second batch. I'm going to click on new again. This time I'm going to manually type in a batch number of all ones. I'm going to say that the manufacturing date was the 14th and that it expires 65 days. We'll actually say 60 days on this one. And apply that and double check our expiration date. And now I can go ahead and click OK. In this batch, I'm going to say I received 5. And I click OK and create. And now I have stock of that particular product. So when I go to my stock and I look for my floor cleaner here, you notice I have 15 under quantity. However, if I go to the context menu, I can click on show batches and it will give me the breakdown of all my batches, when it was manufactured, and the quantity in each batch. So now let's take a look at what this looks like when we create a sales invoice. So I'm going to go in create sales invoice, and then we'll go ahead and create a new sales invoice at the top. I'm going to go ahead and select my item here, floor cleaner, and you'll notice instantly it's prompting the user to select from what batch they want to use. For this example, we're going to select this batch number right here and click OK, and it adds one quantity of that particular item to my sales invoice. If I want to edit the quantity, you can click in the quantity box, but it is going to ask us to input the quantity from this screen, which verifies what batch we're pulling from. We're going to say we need 3 from this batch. Now, another scenario might be that you need to pull inventory from a second batch for the same particular item. We can do that by selecting floor cleaner once again from our item dropdown. And this time it's going to bring up the batch that we're pulling inventory from, just like before, but we're going to use the batch that starts with all ones and click OK. Now by default, it adds 1 inventory from that particular batch, so our quantity went up to 4. But if I click back into the quantity section, it brings back up the option for me to edit the amount of inventory I'm pulling from each batch. Now I'm going to say I need 2 from the 111 batch, click OK, and now our total quantity is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this invoice Okay, so that was the manual batch option. Now let's take a look at what happens when we create an invoice for a auto batch. I'm going to create another sales invoice. This time I already have an item created called ZEP heavy duty degreaser. And if you notice, it didn't ask me or prompt me to select a batch at all. I'm going to go ahead and say that I need 3 quantity of this. And I'm going to go down and hit pay now and close out this invoice like normal. But how do I know what batch that inventory came from? Well, if I go to my sales invoice, we can look at it from a couple different locations. I'm going to go ahead and choose the pick, pack, and dispatch option. Here we see how much pending inventory we need to pack. But if I need to know exactly where this inventory or what batch this inventory is coming from, I can click on the context menu and view batch quantity. And it lets me know that this is the batch number it pulled from, and this is the expiration date of that particular batch. Okay, so that's how the auto batch works. It pulls inventory based off of either the expiration date or the first in, first out model, and it doesn't require a user to have to select it themselves. So this wraps up the overview of the batches in AltheaSuite. If you have any more questions, please visit AltheaSuite.com.